Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of the UK Connection. As always, sitting beside me here in the Zoom, Simon Bray and Steven Reid. What's going on, gentlemen?
Yeah, all is good here, Pete. For yourself, is all well, all good, excited at a new format.
Yeah, I'm excited to start another show theme amongst the many that we do here on the UK Connection, because we like to keep everybody guessing what we're going to do next, and we like to keep it fresh. So we've had a lot of people ask us to cover more of like AOR and melodic rock territory, and so after some kind of back and forth, we've decided what we're going to do is we're going to try and do these once a month, kind of mix it up a little bit. So you'll get like, ranking the songs on classic albums, you'll get the favorite, least favorite albums from a band, and you'll get this kind of like AOR melodic rock kind of breakdown. But each episode, we're going to kind of focus on three albums. One of them is going to be a AOR melodic rock classic. One's going to be maybe little known, kind of on more underground, right? A little more obscure. And one's going to be an AOR melodic rock album from someone we maybe never associated with doing something like that, because there's a lot of bands and artists who would do one of those. It's like, hey, we're going to do this here. We're going to give this a try. So that's kind of like the format. And, you'll see some of these albums will be very, very much so in that kind of AOR radio-friendly melodic rock format. Some might kind of push the boundaries a little bit. We'll see how it goes. There's lots to choose from, and we're going to be picking from 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, because this kind of style runs the gamut from, all the decades that we really cover on the channel. So, but before we start talking, Simon's going to tell us what he's drinking today.
Yes, Simon is. Simon likes gifts. Gifts are one of the finest things that Simon likes. And this was a gift from my good friend, John G. Simpson, who used to live in Madrid. So obviously this beer is from Barcelona.
Nice.
Yeah, it's Cerveza del Juvenile or something. I don't know. Just there was cameras over there, isn't it? My Spanish tells me that this is an ale-inspired winter recipe brewed using a warm fermentation method with a hint of spice, a warm flavored heterogeneous ale, ideal to enjoy with friends on cold winter evenings. Well, I can confirm, if nothing else, it's absolutely pissing down outside.
Yep.
So yeah, that does to me. That does for me for being cold. I've already skilled it up previously, so I'm going to taste it and let you know right now if it's.
What? Show us the bottle again, Simon.
Yeah.
Please. Yeah, I'm just okay. So, what color is the beer? What? I know it's in your skull. Sorry. I'm now going to see if you can put it on yourself.
It's red for all intents and purposes.
It's brown. It's beer color, and it's a super sexy 7%.
Oh well. See, mine is neither brown. There's a sentence I wasn't expecting to say today. Nor is it 7%. I am weak by comparison. Weak. I am 3.6%.
Wow.
I am drinking a smoked porter. I've never had this before. Okay.
That's low for a porter. Wow, 3.6.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Jeez.
So this is from Wasted Degrees. It's a limited edition. I don't know how many that means. I don't know if there's like 7 of these or 400,000. Not a clue. But it is really quite local to me. This is brewed at a renewables powered brewery in Highland, Perthshire.
Sorry, Stephen, what was that?
Highland, Perthshire.
No, the first bit.
It's brewed at the renewables powered brewery.
Okay, thank you.
There you go. That's worth mentioning on the can.
Yeah.
Say that fast 3 times. Nope.
No, I couldn't say it the second time. I was okay the first. Simon was just mean. This session smoked porter is brewed with beechwood smoked barley, chocolate malt, wheat malt, and pale malt, along with Columbus hops. It's nutty malty and with a subtle smoke character from the beechwood. The hops then add a fresh finish. It's unfined, unfiltered, and it's vegan friendly. It's got all the information here. There we go. So Blair Athol is where it's from, which is not far from me at all. And in my completely unrelated Spey Valley brewery glass, it looks mighty fine indeed, I have to say.
It does. It does.
And it's not, doesn't have quite as strong a scent as I would expect from a porter. Oh, it tastes good. It's lovely.
Didn't Wasted Degrees tour with Diamond Head back in the day?
Excuse me, what?
Didn't Wasted Degrees tour with Diamond Head? I feel like
They should have done. They certainly should have done.
I feel that's the genre.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't intrigued by the name.
There you go.
I like the name. I think it's a great name.
Yeah, I like the name as well. That's what made me pick it up. There may be another one in the future, a different type from them.
Whoever does their marketing, I like that little blurb that you read off on the back. Very, very catchy.
It is, isn't it? Yes, absolutely. Yes. And this is very nice indeed. It doesn't have much of a scent, but it is really flavoursome. It's very nice.
Mine, I'm not quite sure. I may or may not have had this on air before. I've had this beer many times before, but it's all I had in the fridge. So sorry if I've crossed this bridge before, but from Millhouse Brewing Company in Poughkeepsie, New York. It's a cold one. It is a German Kolsch style ale, 4.6%. This Kolsch style ale is not your dad's lawnmower beer. Crack one open when you're done with your chores. You deserve it. And I do. And you know what? I mowed my lawn during lunch hour today. So it's actually perfect. And it's made with Tettnang and Hallertauer hops, German Pilsner, and Vienna malts. Cold one by Millhouse.
I think you may have held that up before because I'm always impressed by completely unwarranted umlauts.
That's possible.
It definitely makes them fall into the same category as Motorhead and Motley Crue in my book.
Right.
And
so it's not cold one. It's, I guess, cold one. I don't know how that's pronounced.
But we don't say Motley Crue, do we? So
I don't know.
That.
I will tell you, it's a really good beer. I'm a big fan of, like, as everybody knows, of German Pilsners, and I love Kolsch's. So this is just good, drinkable beer. And I got it in my Long Trail Brewing Company glass from, of course, up in New England. So cheers. With that, I'll turn it over to Steven to kind of introduce our 3 albums here.
Oh, do you want me to introduce all 3? I'll introduce them one at a time, and then we'll talk about that one. How does that?
That's fine.
Okay, so I think from the 3 categories that we've kind of chosen, so the classic album, the underground classic, or the unappreciated, underappreciated, it was really good, it should have been huge selection, or they made an AOR melodic rock album. I think the classic is actually going to be the category that's hardest to continue to fill in that sense, because I think there are fewer of those. There are hundreds of the others. And the more I thought about the latter category, the more I think, oh, they made an album that fits into that. That's going to be lots of fun as we go forward. Yeah. But I think we're starting with a real stone cold classic. We're starting with Foreigner 4 is what we're starting with. Okay. Not the most inspired album cover, I don't think, personally. But there we go. Thank you, Simon. There we go. Always making that extra effort. So this is, funnily enough, this was Foreigner's 4th album, released on the 3rd of July, 1981 on Atlantic, and it was their first as a 4-piece. Okay, so Ian MacDonald and Al Greenwood had just left the band, reportedly because they wanted a bigger say in the songwriting, for which Mick Jones and Lou Gramm were both going, no, it's mine. And that would be a theme going forward, as one of them decided it was more theirs than the others. Which left the band as Lou Gramm on vocals, Mick Jones on guitar and keyboards, Dennis Elliott on drums, and Rick Willis on bass. This was his 2nd album with the band. And it was produced, of course, by that man himself, Robert John Mutt Lang, who was everywhere at this stage, absolutely everywhere. And it was also engineered by Dave Whitman and Tony Platt, who was also everywhere at this stage. AC/DC, Cheap Trick, I mean, things like Sparks, massive sellers like Shy. We may come to them at a later date. And there's quite a few interesting guests on this. You've got Thomas, although he was credited as Tom Dolby, playing synths on this album. You've got guys like Larry Fast, Bob Mayo, Michael Fonfara, all playing synths and keys alongside Mick Jones, obviously. And then with no Ian MacDonald, you also get session sax players like Mark Rivera, who'd worked with Billy Joel, and Junior Walker, who does the solo on Urgent, I think, it spent 10 weeks at #1 in the Billboard charts. It went 6 times platinum in the US. It reached #5 in the UK and went gold. It went 4 times platinum in Canada, platinum in Australia and Germany, and it also went gold in France. And that is Foreigner 4.
And 2 of the songs, which we'll talk about, were huge hits here in the States.
Absolutely.
Simon, your opinions on Foreigner 4?
Yeah, I don't own much Foreigner.
Wow.
I know. Very little Foreigner. Very little Foreigner. I did actually make a point earlier thinking I should go and grab my F-shaped disc of I Want to Know What Love Is, and then promptly didn't. I absolutely thought to myself, right, I'm going upstairs. I did go upstairs, but I didn't. Yeah, I don't own that much Foreigner. I don't dislike Foreigner. My favourite Foreigner song is Soul Doctor from Best of Beyond, because they've got 16 compilation albums, don't they? At least.
Both with a bonus track or 2, so you buy them anyway.
400 live albums. Now, you will both know, as people that do reviews, that quite a lot of the songs are on all these albums and are a little bit overplayed, even to somebody like me who curates his own life. Before I talk about them, though, what I did do in my research is I noticed that Smooth Radio have produced a list of Foreigner's best songs. Okay, switch off if you're American, because Smooth Radio decided that they were, right? See which one of these Smooth Radio will never, ever play. Are we ready? Here we go. I Want to Know What Love Is their best song, apparently. What does our survey say? Waiting for a Girl Like You is their second best song.
Yeah, I like that song. It's not the second best, but I like it.
Cold as Ice is apparently their third.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
You see that getting played on Smooth?
No.
Double Vision being their fourth.
Another good song.
That's a good song. That's touch and go for them. That's edgy, I think, for Smooth Radio.
That's smooth.
Yeah, they're not smooth. No. In the slightest. Jukebox Hero as well.
No, that's not smooth. It's great.
Not within their paradigm in any way, shape, or form, is it? No. So, but you will notice that the top 2 are the ones that are aimed fairly and squarely in the middle of the road. Now, I think with this album, the key cuts are the deep cuts.
Okay.
That's where the good shit really lies with this album, I think. For instance, Luan, that's super fluffy, isn't it? Super fluffy, Stephen. If only there were other versions available. Super fluffy, super poppy. I really like it. I'm going to win. One kind of thing that I always seem to be a theme with these types of band was, there's definitely a tension between the ballady stuff and the more rocking stuff with all these bands. It's how tough they could be. It's almost like the conservative Home Secretaries, isn't it? But I'm so tough. And I'm going to win.
Whoa! What? Foreigner were never quite as extreme as that. I'm just going to put that out there.
I see what you did. Oh shit! I've got to go. It's my turn to be Prime Minister. See ya. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
It's okay. He'll be back by the time the show's finished.
I've just been voted out. Oh well, never mind. Yeah, great guitar sound on that. I think round about now, and for the previous 5 years, I think it's where Mutt was in his groove before he thought, I can make everything sound a bit shit, actually. Bit over processed. Yeah, I'm going for it. A bit over processed. Yeah, and I think Lou Gramm is definitely more suited to the rockier material, don't you?
Oh, he's phenomenal at it.
Yeah, very, very much so. I love Woman in Black. That's a magnificent tune. It's the best thing on it. I love the prowling rhythm guitar. I like the big power chords. I like practically everything about it. Girl on the Moon's a mid-tempo winner. Don't Let Go. It's the second best thing on it. Rock Pop Genius. The keys really add the texture. You know, once you know it's Thomas Dolby, you think, really? Or it could be Thomas Dolby, or it could be the guy from Tycoon. Remember Tycoon, don't you, Stephen? Two members of Tycoon.
I really do. Genuinely do.
Two members of Tycoon on this album, Stephen. Just saying. What I do like about Don't Let Go is how feminine the backing vocals sound. And you look at the personnel, and let's be honest, I only looked on Wikipedia, and there are no female backing vocals on it.
Oh.
And yet they're very high pitched. So yeah, but that's just a pop rock genius for me. I really like the songs that are not the ones that you hear all the time, and I think that's the strength of a really good album, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
You know, The Foreigner are not necessarily my thing all the time. You know, I've seen them. I think actually Kelly Hansen's still in Manchester, holding his microphone out, waiting for people to sing. I Want to Know What Love Is. Yeah. Just saying, it really did go on a while. You know, but the deep cuts are what makes this album special, because they could have been shit, couldn't they? You know, you've got the hits, and you know there are some classic hits on this, and they could have just gone, well, let's just toss some shit off, and they didn't.
I would say that up to this point, they hadn't. It's not just that they didn't. For four, I would suggest that the first four albums, they don't, for want of a better turn of phrase, just toss shit out. I think the first four Foreigner albums are remarkably consistent. I mean, this isn't my favourite Foreigner album. We've chosen it as the classic because it's ginormous. There's huge hits on here. It's the one that people talk about. You look at on lists of AOR classics, melodic rock monsters. This isn't the top 3 or 4 of just about everything that you'll look at. So it is the classic. I know that people will say, I prefer the debut. I prefer the debut. Okay. Yeah, there you go. That doesn't stop this from being, I think, the album that made them, even though they were ginormous by this stage anyway, to be fair. And it maybe started the process that broke them in many ways, because there is a really fine mix of up-tempo rockers on here. I mean, there is great stuff like Urgent. I know it's overheard, I know it's overplayed, I know it's in the law, they have to put it in their set and all this kind of thing, and it's got that Mutt Lange thing of Urgent. He's already got all these little vocal ticks that you can feel that he does actually say all the singers, you have to do this. Because when you listen to the albums we produced, they all do these little vocal ticks and stutters and yeah, and all this kind of stuff that seems to go on. But it's a great song. But then you do have the other massive hit, Waiting for a Girl Like You. And I love that little keyboard melody that runs through there. It's really sharp, tight songwriting. It has stood the test of time for a reason. It is one of those songs that kind of goes beyond the genre. People know this song, whether they're really into rock, AOR, Foreigner, or not. And that was an issue going beyond here. At this point, it seems to be the perfect mix. So, you know, Jukebox Hero is just a great song. Yes, there's Luan, Break It Up. Nightlife is a really good opener. I would say, interestingly, though, going back to it now after all these years, you do realise that they are kind of mining the same ideas already at this stage. There are a lot of songs on this album you kind of think, did they not do this before? And there are just little, you know, crutches that they seem to lean on and say that as if it's a bad album. It's a great album. And Simon's really, I think, hit the nail on the head. The depth on here goes beyond the hit singles. And I think for a lot of these classic albums, that's maybe not always true. It's a really fantastic sounding record as well. Do you know, I mean, Mutt Lange was God at this stage, or about to be, or was on the verge of, or whatever. And you can kind of hear why he was in such high demand. It's really quite incredible how good this album sounds, even now, going back to it. And we're really not too many albums away from the whole thing imploding, which is quite bizarre, because you listen to this and it's a band right at the peak of their powers. They really are. Whether I prefer what came before or not really doesn't matter. In the terms of, you know, 1981, when this came out, this just absolutely hits the nail on the head. It's perfect for the era. But Lou Graham's outstanding. I think the whole thing is great. I think the whole band are really tight. And Mick Jones is a really underrated guitar player, and he does rip it up a lot on this album. There's a lot of real proper guitar, and hindsight kind of remembers, I want to know what love is, and everyone goes, oh, they're a ballad band. They really were not a ballad band.
Right.
Even when the ballads were what they were doing, they really weren't a ballad band. And Mick Jones can play, but Lou Gramm, wow,
Powerhouse.
absolutely. And yet, I would agree with Simon. I think he's more suited to the rock stuff than he is to the pure kind of ballads and slower songs. But man, oh man, he's good at them too. I just don't think he puts a foot wrong here. I really do. I think he's absolutely outstandingly good, and arguably the archetypal vocalist for this style of music at this stage. Not all the way through, but definitely at this stage. And I think Four is a Monster. I think it is a classic for a reason. I still prefer other Foreigner albums over this because I prefer the songs. But as an album, this really, really hangs together. And I'll go back to what I said, really shit cover though.
Yeah.
I really dislike the cover, always have done, but there you go. And I know that this wasn't actually the original design for it. I think that it was it Hypnosis that put the original design together, and they weren't happy with what they came away with. I think they still do the actual, I think Hypnosis do this part. So they still get the credit on the album of having designed certain points of it. That looks more Hypnosis to me. But the band really didn't like what they came up with, so we ended up with this, which has become classic in itself, even if it isn't very good.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's Foreigner 4 for me. There's not a single song here that I don't like, and I think from what I've read, I didn't actually know this, but I think that "Girl on the Moon" is one of Mick Jones's favourite Foreigner songs, and it's largely forgotten, but it shouldn't be. It's really, really good. It's Foreigner 4.
It's
you guys
not
ever
like
hear
they ever play the deep cuts, is it? Sorry.
Right.
It's not like they ever dig deep, is it, when you go and see them?
No.
No, but I suppose that's that's the stage they're at, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
I mean, Kelly Hansen does a great job with him. He's absolutely outstanding. He's, in my opinion, the best modern replacement vocalist that we've seen. He sings the songs fantastically. He owns the stage as if he always performed in a band of this size, playing venues of this size, which, with all due respect to Hurricane, he did not. But I'm a massive Lou Gramm fan. I was one of these people, especially the second time after Johnny Edwards had been in Gone, I quite like Unusual Heat. You could thought, stop it now, stop it. We don't need a replacement singer, especially if you're not going to record very much and you're just going to go out and tour Lou's songs. Half a song in, I didn't care when I saw them live. Didn't matter because he was so good. He was absolutely so good. But can you go out with a guy like that and do deep cuts? I don't really know. That then feels a bit odd, I think. But they know what they're doing. They do it well.
You ever hear Lou's band before Foreigner called Black Sheep?
Yeah.
That's good.
But it's fascinating how far removed it is from Foreigner.
Oh, I know. Yeah, it's more like Bad Company Free type stuff, but it's not Foreigner-ish at all. But it's really good. I like it a lot.
And he can sing that stuff too.
Oh yeah.
You
know, it's funny. You talk about the deep cuts on this album, or any of these first few Foreigner albums. So, if you were to go see Foreigner today, or even like in the '80s, and they were to go play "Woman Is Black," "Don't Let Go," "I'm Gonna Win," I guarantee you, 3/4 of the people in the audience would have no idea what those songs are. That's again, I don't want to derail the conversation, because that's one of the things that drives me crazy, is that this album was so massive, but I bet you most casual Foreigner fans only know it for 3 songs, which is a shame, because there are great deep cuts on this album. I would agree with Steven. This isn't my favorite Foreigner album of the first 4. Quite frankly, it's probably my 4th favorite of the first 4. I like the first 3 better, but there is great stuff on here. I know it's a good song. I never need to hear "Waiting for a Girl Like You" again, ever. Just like "I Want to Know What Love Is," never need to hear that again. However, Nightlife is amazing. I love Nightlife. Jukebox Hero kicks ass. Luann, so catchy. Break It Up could be the catchiest song on the whole album. Break It Up is terrific. Urgent is still great. I still can listen to Urgent, even though that was so played out for me back when it came out. I was like, it's such a great song. Like I said, I'm Gonna Win is one of the heavier tracks. I think Don't Let It Go to me is like and I think that goes back to what you said, how it's really good, but it sounds awfully similar to like what they would do on the first three albums. It's a real throwback to those first three albums. It's just good, hooky, hard rock. Maybe there's nothing spectacular about it, but it just works. And his vocals are so good. I wish there were a couple more of those on this album, but this thing sold a gazillion copies. I think the debut or maybe the second album sold like 1 million more, but still, man, when you're selling 5, 6, 7, 8 million copies of an album, that's just absolutely stupendous. So yeah, I mean, I like this a lot. I think it's great. Handful of hits and some really good deep cuts. Yeah, maybe 1 or 2 tracks on here aren't fantastic, but there's nothing on here that's bad. Even though one I never need to hear again, I recognize it as a great pop song, and that's, these guys were good at that. But I also agree that Lou Gramm was better at singing the hard rock stuff. But of course, in the end, I don't know how much hard rock he can sing to this day, right? He's had all sorts of physical things going on with his throat and his voice. So, but yeah, well, I miss him because the guy was a powerhouse. I don't know if you guys ever saw that live concert from, I believe it was from London somewhere from like 1978 or 79, playing mostly stuff from the first 2 albums. Wow. He's the force to be reckoned with back then. I mean, back then he was like on par with like, Steve Perry and some of those other like young, Steve Walsh, these like, young, just powerhouse American vocalists that just, young Lou Gramm, hard to beat. So yeah, I like this a lot. Not my favorite, but I like it a lot.
So the second album that we've chosen, so this is, I don't know what you want to call this. Should have been huge. It's a sleeper. Should be better known. It's Saraya, self-titled debut, 1989, came out in Polygram. Okay, the band was Sandy Saraya on vocals, who, what an amazing singer. What a short career, realistically. There's these 2 albums that Saraya did, a single that's nothing to do with either, and the only other appearance I can find for her, and I'm sure somebody will correct me, is as a guest vocalist on Tony Harnell and the Mercury Train in 2010, strangely enough, which I have somewhere. But the rest of the band was Greg Munier on keys, Tony Bruno Ray on guitar, who people may know from Sass Jordan, Danger Danger, Joel and Turner. I believe he's now a mega producer that's worked for Rihanna and various things like that. Gary Taylor on bass, Chuck Bonfanti on drums from the likes of Drive She Said and Flesh and Blood, the Danny Vaughan version of Flesh and Blood, not the one that were Dear Mr. President that I will talk about on the show at some point. So yeah, this was the debut. They only released 1 other album, When the Blackbird Sings, in 1991. There was a single from a soundtrack to the film Shocker called Timeless Love, which quite bizarrely appears to not have been a band enterprise at all, and was really only Sandy on vocals and a whole load of session guys. And by the time that we got the second album 2 years later, Gary Taylor had gone. Greg Munier was leaving the band. He still plays keys on the second one, but he didn't like the fact that it was heading much more in a guitar direction. So lots of guitars from the debut, by the way. And Barry Dunaway came in on bass, who people will know from Yngwie and Pat Travers, Lou Gramm, funnily enough. And then in the latter days, a guy called Johnny Rodio came in on guitar, and I don't think he ever recorded with them. The debut album is what we're focusing on, and this spent 39 weeks on the US Billboard 200. It peaked at number 79, and it was produced by Jeff Klicksman, who hundreds of albums as well, produced by Jeff Klicksman. So yeah, Saraya.
What do you think, Simon?
I was going to call them Saraya, but you know what? Who cares? Really?
Well, yeah. I would have called them Saraya until I watched on YouTube just the other day them playing live on some small stage somewhere. It's a semi-pro shot video of the whole show. it's from the crowd, but the guy clearly knows the set because he knows when to pull back because she does some sexy moves and all this kind of stuff. He's obviously seen a lot of shows, and the sound is great. And Sandy calls him Saraya, so from now on, she knows what she's talking about. It's her name.
I'd never heard that, but the other day I was listening to a podcast with Saraya, the wrestler, on, and she said, "Well, Americans all call me Saraya." So confused because I know I'm about to talk about this record. You know what I mean? Let's talk about the record, shall we? First of all, before we move on to the important stuff, if you're going to watch the ranking of the 38 special albums on Sunday, and you should do, there's a bit where I get quite confused when I'm looking at the albums because I thought, this is the album, and it wasn't. Because this was a thing for a while, wasn't it? Plastic shit.
Yes.
Why? I hate it. I love it. I don't like that either.
No, I don't like that either, but at least mine doesn't crinkle and fold when it goes in.
Yeah.
So probably that's better for the vinyl. These plastic ones you've got.
A lot of Polydor albums came with the plastic.
Yeah, just no.
Yeah.
I find that US ones came with the plastic.
Oh, a lot. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And UK ones came with some sort of paper sleeve with a plastic bag taped inside to it. So whenever I got one that had a bag like Simon's has got there, I tended to find it was a US pressing, but I don't know if that one is that you've got there. Don't know.
Clue. I just had it since roughly it came out. So yeah. And also, you know,
when it came out.
You know the Mama's Boy album that I was telling you about, we were talking about the other day on social media. That's got a plastic. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's be honest. None of us are going to listen to the plastic. What's the music like? Oh my God, that was so Radio 1, wasn't it?
No idea. Is it? But okay.
Okay, it's Radio 1 in 1985. Let's move along, shall we? Yeah. I didn't realize until somebody told us on Twitter yesterday that Love Has Taken Its Toll has a video.
Yeah.
I've never seen it until yesterday. Now I've watched it 1,500 times. And you can never have enough really big-haired people wearing zebra-based clothing, can you really?
No, never.
Yeah. Just in many ways, this is just like so Bon Jovi-ish. You know, yeah, I'm going with it. It is Bon Jovi's. But what I want to really talk about is I like side one. Side one's good. Side one's good. But side B, as it actually is, that's what it calls it. Side B is absolutely fantastic. It's a work of absolute genius for me. Even Alsace Lorraine, which is just like a plinky keyboard kind of thing. And you know how much we don't like plinky introduction things, do we? You know, consistency is our watchword and all that, isn't it? But even that's fine. And then you've got the deep purpley keyboards of Running Out of Time, which is great. And then you've got Back to the Bullet, which is absolutely one of my favorite tunes of all time. I love it. If I was to create a playlist, and I wouldn't because that's not me. And if I was to create a playlist saying songs that make me full of happy, joy, Back to the Bullet would be on it. It really, I love the keyboard. In fact, Greg Munier is very much the most valuable player of this entire album. Yeah, and like you say, he's on the second one, but he's not on the second one. But on this one, he's absolutely all over. He's co-writing practically everything, and the keys are everywhere. It's proper fluffy, party, melodic rock, you know, pop metal kind of Bon Jovi style, but Back to the Bullet, it's just magnificent, and the video is even better because it just screams what it is. You know, do we have people in corridors leaning back with big billowy waistcoats, playing their guitars with one knee up? Yes, we do. Have we got nonsensical hats? Yes, we have. Have we got massive hair? Yes, we have. Have we got billowing not clouds, what do they call them? Flags and shit? Yes, we do. It's brilliant. I just love it. I really do. Fighter Burn's great, but St. Christopher's Medal is just yeah. Should I hawk my medal to get some Broadway tickets? I mean, these are the big dilemmas, aren't they? You know, that's a conversation I have in my head every day.
It's sung like a life changer, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And then but I was listening to it today, and I thought, actually that line's a bit on the nose, isn't it? Should I swap my medal for a couple of Broadway tickets? But yeah, it really is sung with utter conviction, and I like that. I really do. It's a really good record. I don't think, unlike many records of its time, I don't think it's dated that much. The production to me is fine, absolutely. Sometimes you listen to things from the 1980s and you think, oh, that's no, don't like that. But this is fine, unlike the haircuts. Yes, Stephen, haircuts. Yeah, on the back. I mean, on the back, at least one of them looks like he should be in soul asylum. But don't I think?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I often think to myself, and I'm sure you guys will touch on this. Why do records like this, records that I think are really, really commercial, why do they never sell?
Well,
why am I the only, why are we? And I think we got as far as what, 3 or 4 people on Twitter, Stephen? Why are we the only 4 people that bought this in the UK?
Possibly. I don't think that the cover helps it.
No.
I mean, we've chosen 3 albums. It wasn't until I put them together to take a little photograph to share on Twitter to see what we were talking about this week that I looked at them and went, oh, they've all got really shit black and white covers. They are so monochrome and boring.
Yeah.
The photograph, I thought, well, we add a 4th album to jazz things up. As a trio, these looked really garbage.
That's very true.
I kind of admire the fact that if you bought Kerrang around this era, it was filled with, let's say, titivation. I mean, you had Lisa Dominique standing like this. Okay. And there was almost like dolly birds who'd happen to sing in bands. And here's a really good looking young lass in this band, and she's almost hidden on the cover. It's really brave.
Yeah.
Because the sex symbol thing in rock, especially at this stage, was a hindrance for a woman. It just meant that you wouldn't be taken seriously, I think, whether you could do it or not. And I'm really pleased that I stumbled across the live show from Saraya this week, because I tell you what, she's phenomenal. What a singer. What an absolute singer. She's great on this. But the live show really makes you go, oh, wow, okay, hold on. What a lost talent. She's absolutely amazing. I think this is a really classy, mature debut. I think that this is a guitar band with lots of keyboards. And they kind of got lumped in with the scene that they belonged to and kind of didn't. There's lots of bands that happened to at this stage. And I do like the fact that they resisted just going the easy route and putting the sexy lass on the cover really gratuitously. They didn't do that. And now I'm going to say something that Simon's going to hate. Okay, he may never talk to me ever again. At least I'm kind of banking on that.
You're going to do this again?
Again. Again. Okay. Because when Love Has Taken Its Toll kicks in, if you kind of tone out the keyboard a little bit, it reminds me of Led Zeppelin. Okay, I think the guitar phrasing, I think some of the way that the song is structured kind of takes you there. I mean, Sandy is much less likely to squeeze her lemon than Robert Plant is. Don't get me wrong. I'm not telling you it's like Kingdom Come. It's not basically Greta Van Fleet. It's not a cover version band doing something and saying it's their own. But there are flavours there that I think take me there, and it's heavier than I anticipated in that sense. Healing Touch, that's much more the late 80s vibe, little staccato riff, working in tandem with some excellent keyboards. It's classy, but it's up tempo. It's really good. And same again, I think Get You Ready has a little bit of Zeppelin about the guitars. Kind of meets House of Lords. There's a little dun 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 in the guitars that I think, somebody definitely listened to Jimmy Page at some point. It's not, you would never confuse the two. It's just little flavours. And then you've got Gypsy Child, and Sandy was compared to Ann Wilson an awful lot with their vocal style. I mean, Ann Wilson is a phenomenal comparison to be made for any female vocalist, or male vocalist for that matter. I think it slightly undersells her because there's little similarities, and little vocal inflections where you kind of go, but there's a huskiness about Gypsy Child, and I can kind of see where that would come from. I think it could fit on the Heart album, the second one called Heart, and Bad Animals without too much problem. And I just think that it's a really good album. There's no weakness here. The heavier stuff is really believable. And then you do have things like St. Christopher's Medal. I mean, it's one of the best softies of the era. It seems much more genuine than an awful lot of the same kind of songs that we're kicking about in this era at this time that were in that kind of phrasing, do you know? But as for Alsace-Lorraine, I think that was shoehorned in to this album, because that's what this band were called before somebody signed them and went, let's just name them after this person here. So whether that's just a little nod so they could put something in there to kind of say, you know, well, that's where we came from and that's what we would have liked to have been called. But then those big massive organs that come in on Running Out of Time, I mean, they barely belong on the album, the way things have gone up till this point. Man, oh man, this is right in my wheelhouse. It's so good, so good. And the guitar solo on that song as well is absolutely outstanding. And I mean, I said this about Foreigner. I don't find a weak moment on this album. I really, really like this album. It's really stood the test of time. Simon was absolutely spot on. This doesn't sound 1989 in the way that 1989 tends to. Do you know, it's much more beefy. This is not something you go, oh, please can somebody remix and remaster this? I'm sure it would sound great if they did. I would buy it. But it doesn't scream that it needs it. I really like this album. I will happily tell you that this was one of the ones that Simon suggested, and as soon as he did, I think he saw when he mentioned it off air the other week, my eyes just lit up. Oh, that's how to kick this off, because this is brilliant. So yeah, I may be slightly biased. I love this album. Loved it when I bought it. Love it now.
Steve, we're on the same page there, Stephen. It's all good.
Absolutely, yes. There you go.
What's really interesting is that, you know, you guys are very, very familiar with that album. I'd never heard that album before this week, other than Love Has Taken Its Toll, which I remember that as soon as I started playing this, I was like, oh, I remember that song. Good song. But that's, you know, 1989. And I remember, like, when I heard that song, I'm like, that's really good. Am I going to buy the album? Nah, because I got to go buy the new Slayer album or whatever, you know, whatever was catching my fancy at the time. So this type of thing, I was getting out of this type of stuff by 1989. And I think that's the reason why I never bothered to go and check out more of their music. I will say I like this album. This is pretty good. Not a classic, but really solid, I think. The guitar tone on this album is monstrous. I mean, this guy is playing up a storm. She sounds great. I think this album is a little more, is going to be one of the more rockin' albums, I think, in this series that we're doing, because some of this is pushing the boundaries, I think, of what melodic rock actually really is. Healing Touch, though, firmly sits in this whole AOR melodic thing. That's a good song, good hook on that. I like that one. Get You Ready, another really tremendous rock song. Gypsy Child has some really nice hooks on that. I like that. One Night Away, good anthemic feel to that one. Running Out of Time could be my favorite song on the album. That's really good. Back to the Bullet. So 80s sounding, borderline cheesy, but there's an appeal to that. So yeah, I could totally see, you know, Simon like falling in love with that song. I totally get it.
That's good, because I have for 30 odd years.
Yeah, right. Fire to Burn's another good one. St. Christopher's Medal is a really good song. That's a really good. I don't know if you even want to call that a ballad, but that's really good. I like Drop the Bomb a lot.
Yep.
I don't know. Overall, very, very solid album. I enjoyed it. I don't know if I'd go out and buy it, but it's good. It was good to catch up with this album after all these years, because quite frankly, the Saraya was a name I remember quite a bit for those couple of years. And then until you guys mentioned it, I don't think I've even thought for 2 seconds about this band since. And that was a long ass time ago. So yeah, definitely. If you're watching the show and you haven't heard this album and you like good 80s melodic, muscular rock music, check it out. There's a lot to like on here, quite a bit. And I like the production of it too. It's from its time for sure, but I think very strong album. So
can I be a little indulgent and say we're probably not going to swing back round and talk about Saraya very much? So, Simon, what do you think of the follow-up?
I like the follow-up. It meanders quite a bit more. It's definitely not as fun, party, fluffy, keyboardy. And I don't go back to this as often as I do with the other. I really like the title song. Hitching a Ride's great. Bring Back the Light's fantastic. Queen of the She was good. It just doesn't work for me quite as much as the debut.
Yeah, realistically, what that guy just said, you've nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. That this is a really good album. Would I rave about it? Probably not. Was it the right follow-up? Probably not. Same again. Very brave. Where is she? That's really brave. Considering that the first album wasn't a massive hit, to just not put any of the band anywhere to be seen. Yeah, okay, they're inside the booklet, but it's little moves like that you just kind of think, are we trying to take ourselves just a little too seriously?
Still in Soul Asylum.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you know?
And regards to the cover shot on the first album, I know the reason why they did it the way they did, but if she's a little more prominent on that album, even just take her out of shadow.
Yeah,
that does a lot more business than it did.
And watching that live show that I did on YouTube, what really struck me is that and I mean this as a good thing, she was the show. You know, I mean, she's got real stage presence. She's got great moves. She's clearly choreographed.
If you call the name of the band your name, I mean, come on, it's your band.
Yeah, but I do wonder
on everything, right?
I wonder if putting Alsace-Lorraine on there is them kind of saying we didn't choose this band name. I know that was maybe just for them, because I think that her and Greg Mounier up to that point they were tight, and then when the sound changed, they were not.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm looking for something that's not there.
I don't know.
Saraya is a cool name, though.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's memorable and it's different.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So the album that we feel kind of falls into they made an album like this category comes from Tommy Shaw, that we'll all know from Styx. Okay, so the album that we've chosen is, oh, look at that beautiful thing that Simon has there. Look at that. That's absolutely glorious. This is Ambition from 1987. We're on Atlantic again. And this is the third of, I believe, 4 solo albums from Tommy Shaw. Okay, recorded during his time in between his periods with Styx. Although he was headed for Damn Yankees after this album, and a subsequent solo album came after. So this was produced by a guy called Terry Thomas, who was in a band called Charlie, which I must admit I know nothing about whatsoever. And he co-wrote most of the album with Tommy Shaw. It was recorded in the UK, and maybe somebody will tell me that I'm wrong here, but basically a group of musicians that were pretty much unknown at this stage. The only name that I recognise from here is Peter Vitesse, keyboard player that was in Jethro Tull for an awful lot of the 80s, and I saw a few months back playing with Zucchero and was absolutely fantastic. The rest of them are guys that really Terry Thomas had worked with, and I would imagine Tommy Shaw had not, but they're all very, very good, it has to be said. So the 2 previous albums that Tommy Shaw had done on his own.
Simon's raising his hand.
Go on.
Richie Kanata was in Billy Joel's band.
Okay, see, that's not really my wheelhouse, so I will put your greater knowledge there. Anybody else of note?
Wicks plays with Paul McCartney, apparently.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah.
I did say I was.
And the background vocalist, Mr. James J.Y. Young, is in a band called Styx.
Yeah, but I mean, he probably went, hey,
yeah,
2 seconds, and do you know what I mean? It's like.
Are you also saying that the album was not produced by a Spiv-based British character actor, Terry Thomas?
Right. So who's Terry Thomas then? Go on.
Which one?
Which one?
Well, I'm on about the actor with the gap tooth. I'm just really keeping it esoteric today.
Well,
Who's Terry Thomas?
Charlie were a band that kind of fits into
Yeah.
exactly this format we're talking about.
Yeah.
They had a couple albums in the 70s, and then they were inactive for a while and then came back again. Very much melodic rock like this.
Yeah, Terry Thomas produced what I consider to be the Good Bad Company albums.
Okay, yes. Yeah, okay. And I like all of them, but I like those albums too, I have to say. You are correct. So,
not that there's anything wrong with the Paul Rodgers Bad Company. Please, God, leave me alone.
Yes, all letters and postcards to Simon Bray, please. Okay, so the two previous solo albums from Tommy Shaw had been Girls with Guns in 1984, and as I mentioned to Peter before we came on here, I really only brought this one through just because that's a bad hairstyle. That is a bad hairstyle. That's really bad. It's a shame I've got a bit of glare on there because it's a mullet to end all mullets. It's really bad. Don't do that, Tommy.
It's a bad hairstyle. He looks like he hasn't eaten in like 3 weeks.
Yeah. It's really not, and it's the best of the album covers that I'm going to show from his albums as well. And then What If came in 1985, which is another garbage album cover, is what it is. And to me, these two albums had a kind of lighter feel about them than Ambition, whereas this, I would suggest, getting ahead of myself and maybe stealing people's thunder, suggests a little bit of what's about to happen. I would suggest. I think there's a flavour of the next band. Not necessarily all the way through, but there are little songs here that I think, oh, those damn
Do you think with a picture like that, that really could be on either Damn Yankees album, couldn't it?
Yeah, couldn't it? Absolutely.
Really could.
Yeah.
And as I may be on record of saying, that's one of my perfect album. Oh, Good Times.
Oh, the first album? Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. So that's Ambition.
Cool. Simon, your thoughts on said it?
I love this album, and I was thrilled when I found this in the charity shop and bought it for about £4 a few months ago. I was utterly thrilled. Had it on cassette for many years, got it on CD, but now I've got the triumvirate. If it's out there on the 8-track cassette or anything like that, 8-track anything, just please give me a ring, anyone. I love this album. I utterly love it from practically start to finish. From him going, oh, that's yeah, right at the start when he does that kind of thing. I'm like, No Such Thing. I like it. I'm not necessarily overly thrilled with the drum sound throughout. Oh, Steven, yeah, alrighty, yeah, you know it makes sense. Yeah, just so many great tunes. I love the title track. Love The Weight of the World. Controversially, I think Ever Since the World Began is better than the Survivor version. Just loving that one. Again, side 2 is great. Are you ready for me? Yes, Tommy. Yes, I am. That is a tune, my friend. Somewhere in the Night, Love You Too Much. Just really just let's be honest. What If and Girls with Guns weren't that great? I'm putting it out there. They were somewhere between not great and massive pile of you know what. You know, there was some absolute bilge on there. But here, I really think he's got his mojo back. You know, and I mean, it's all about 7 copies, didn't it? Again.
Yeah.
But I think he's got his mojo back. And like you said, Steve, you can tell he's got his shit together. It's not long off before he's going to make something really good. And he went on to make something really good. But this is a really, really solid record that doesn't sound like Styx.
Nope.
There's nothing there that you think, oh, Crystal Ball, no. Man in the Wheel, no. It's a pretty hard rock, pretty muscular, hard rocky, melodic rock record that you would never think, oh, Tommy Shaw's going to do that. And I really, really like it. You know, the production is a bit dated, particularly the percussive elements, but yeah, really, really solid record, and one that I go back to time and time again. Yeah.
Okay.
Now the floor is open for you to say that you don't. Go for it.
No, I don't actually. I don't go back to this time and time again. It is, well, I was going to say by far it's my favourite Tommy Shaw solo album. I think that 7 Deadly Zens, which came after quite a time after, I think it's after Damn Yankees, but before Styx again. rivals it, but it's got quirky nonsense in between a lot of the songs. There are moments where you kind of think, just don't do that. We don't need that. They were fun to hear the first couple of times.
It's about 10 years later, wasn't it? 7 Deadly Ends. I've always thought to myself, I really want her out of Star Trek to be on a song, because Marina Sirtis is on it, isn't she? And you think, wow, that kind of weird ass cameo. Yeah, she is. Yeah. Angela Troy.
Yeah, I was thinking exactly that. I was thinking, absolutely, No Such Thing is a great song. I just think what a great upbeat opener that is. I mean, I'm saying I don't go back to this album a lot. I don't go back to any of Tommy Shaw's solo albums an awful lot, because when I think to myself, oh, I want to hear Tommy Shaw, I put on a Damn Yankees album or I play a Styx album. And these kind of sit just a little bit below. But this is really good. If you've not heard this still really needs to be heard. No Such Thing is a great upbeat opener. And I would say that Tommy's vocals are a little bit more aggressive than you're really going to hear. They're throaty. You know, there's a bit of growl and grit in there. And you're thinking, oh, wow, where did that come from? Because it's not that crystal ball that we're used to. He's slightly better than that at me. A little. But the title track's in a similar vein. It's very, very kind of perfect for the mid-80s, mid to late 80s. There's a little kind of pop element in there that I think is really good. I can't understand though why this was completely ignored. I mean, he has come on the back of a really, really, really big band. And okay, he's made two. This is okay. Killers of Guns, it's not really. He's made two really average albums, and then this comes out. And same again, it's a really naff album cover. I know that the videos and things were kind of on vogue at this stage, where it was all black and white and wistful looking into the distance while standing in an alleyway, fun enough with your leg up playing guitar and all this kind of stuff. I am aware of that. But I mean, he'd be better off in like a purple catsuit like Harry Styles or something like that get himself noticed. This is just, who's going to look through the racks at that beautiful bit of vinyl that Simon has there and go, that's the album for me. That screams great pop rock anthems.
I don't often go into the minutiae of album covers quite like you do, but firstly, it screams out Stranger in Town by Toto. It's that kind of black and white monochrome kind of thing that they're all doing at the back. But those colours are just fucking hideous.
Yeah.
What? Because if at the top, the bit that you see at the top, you're going to go, no, that's kind of like a Jimmy Buffett album or something like that. What? And I barely know who he is. No, and yet the music inside is really, really good. If you like melodic rock, and particularly the more muscular variety, it's the album for you. Especially if you like the first. Well, there's only two Damn Yankees. There's a third one, isn't there? If you like Damn Yankees, you will love this.
Yeah, I really do think that this is the perfect stepping stone into Damn Yankees. I really do. And yet, ever since the world began, which is the ballad on the album, and it is a cover, and people know it from Survivor. It's brilliant on here. It's absolutely brilliant on here. It's like it was written for Tommy Shaw.
He sings his little heart out on it, doesn't he?
It's so believable. And if you thought I was bad doing Crystal Ball, you should have heard me singing this in the car through the week. Wow. Thankfully, I was alone, put it that way, because I ruined it for me. Never mind anybody else. But I'm here for the up-tempo stuff. Are you ready for me? That's brilliant. The driver is just really good. These are well-written songs, really well put together. Huge sing-alongs. But there's loads of substance. It's not throwaway fluff. And I even think the mid-tempo, Lay Them Down, that should have been a huge hit. Should have been a huge hit. So I'm maybe not quite as vociferously, phenomenally loving this album as Simon does, but this is really good. Really, really good stuff. And it is criminally underrated, if not just completely forgotten about, because of the body of work that he did before and thankfully after this as well. But yeah, really good album, I think.
One of the things about that album cover is, it wasn't 1976, right? Peter Frampton could get away with an album cover like that in color back in the 70s, Mr. Teen Beat USA type of thing. But I think, for 1987, not a great choice for an album cover. And the whole black and white thing just, not going to work in the 80s. So I have kind of a different perspective than both of you do, which I guess is kind of cool for this, right? So I'm a massive Tommy Shaw close to being a fanboy. I love Tommy. I think he's a phenomenal singer. He's a really good guitar player. I love Styx. I love Damn Yankees. I don't really love any of his solo albums, including this one. I don't dislike this one. This one is probably my favorite out of all of them. And you both said that this is kind of a precursor to what he was going to do in Damn Yankees. To me, yes and no. I think the catchiness of a lot of these songs and kind of like anthem ready choruses, yes, absolutely. This is not Styx. This doesn't sound anything like Domo Arigato, Mr. Roboto, or anything that Styx did in this decade. That's a good thing, right?
And what a shame that is.
I know, right? Yeah, exactly. My problem with this album, and I wrote it I actually put it in capitals and bold in my notes, is like there is too much of this Def Leppard hysteria overproduced thing going across this entire album for me.
Okay.
There's way too many cheesy 80s synthesizers on this album for me. Way too many. And it's like the songs that rock on this album, I love. And I'm like, I want more of that. Like, Are You Ready? That's what I want. I want the whole album like that. No Such Thing. I want the whole album like that. But, Dangerous Game, Weight of the World, it's okay. I like The Outsider. That's really good. Love You Too Much is kind of different. That's kind of like funky, it's got it's a little bit different sounding. I kind of like that. Lay Them Down rocks. I find this album so slick that I think for me anyway, it detracts a little bit of my enjoyment from it. However, if you take that away, these are really good songs.
There's nothing left.
For me, I think I like the songs. Maybe it's a production thing for me. I don't really like the way this album is produced, and maybe it's a mid-late 80s thing, because I find a lot of albums like this don't have staying power with me because I just don't like that production style. But I agree with you. This should have been a huge album. It's got all the characteristics of a lot of other albums like this that did massive business. So why didn't it? So I think it's more me than the album. I will agree. It's the best Tommy Shaw solo album. There's a lot of really good songs on here. I just don't like the way the album's. I would have arranged it differently. I would have produced it differently if it was me. I think the guts of this album are terrific. There's just a lot of, I think Simon mentioned fluff or something like that. For me, there's too much of it. But I think the guitar work on the album is tremendous. He's a great player. I wanted more of it. I don't know. It's just, to me, it's like, this is even, and his first solo album, it goes even more overboard on that whole thing, which is just, so I think this is an improvement on that. It's still, to me, a bit too much, but I will say, I like the album. I like the songs a lot. I don't like the production. It's just, to me, it's just way too slick. It's more poppy than I think it needs to be, but a lot of people probably like that. And so I think it's more of a me thing, but
a lot of people didn't like that.
I guess, right?
They
should have. I mean, my point is that they should have, right? They should have.
Yeah.
So maybe they were scared away from it, just like I was, right? Because I was like, it's like, but I don't know.
I think it's especially out of the three that we're highlighting today, it's the one that screams what year it's from.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, 100%. A lot of the foreign album gets away with the production side of it because it's classic and timeless, because we still.
And you know what, Steven, I didn't want to use the D word. You know what the absolute first thing that I wrote in my notes here, very dated 80s sounds and production. And I purposefully didn't read that because I'm like, everybody was like, oh, they threw the D word out there, dated. What does that actually mean?
Well, but we see, I have a different take on dated. Okay. And it's maybe why I have less of a hang-up going back to certain albums than some people do. Not everybody, and not necessarily the three of us sitting here. But if an album was recorded in 1987, it makes perfect sense to me that it sounds like it was recorded in 1987.
Yeah.
Because, well, why wouldn't it? This was cutting-edge technology that was being used. These were the sounds that were... There were plenty of acts out there, both rock acts and, to be fair, things that were slightly more pop-leaning, that were having really big hits with things around this kind of style, this kind of production value, this kind of feel. Not necessarily this style of song, but certainly it fits right in there. I don't have a problem with dated, because if I want to listen to an album that sounds like it was produced in 87, then I put on an album that was produced in 87. And it takes me there, and I like that. And I was listening to stuff like this back then. I was 14 at this stage, and I was really heavily into this melodic rock kind of scene. And I've never, my musical taste has expanded, as everybody's does, but it hasn't necessarily contracted out of areas that I liked at that point. I still listen to a lot of the music that I was listening to in my early to mid-teens. But I don't get dated. I mean,
and that's why it's a bad word. That's why it's a bad word. I agree.
Yeah,
but
you could
like for me,
the debut from Black Sabbath sounds dated because it sounds like exactly when it came out.
Right.
But because it's classic and we've lived with it all that time and we don't kind of never listen to it and then go back to it, it sounds current. It's our journey, I think. So then when I listen to some of these albums, I don't think dated. But then when you take a step back, you think sounds of 1987. It's the same thing. I know you don't mean it disparaging.
No, I don't. I was just thinking of like other albums that came out in 87 that don't have this sound to me. Like, Whitesnake's 87 album doesn't sound anything like this album. Sabotage, Hall of the Mountain King doesn't sound anything like this album. I could probably go on and on. I think what it is, it's for me, it's an era where a lot of producers and record labels wanted the guitars toned down a little bit, use more of the keyboards because keyboards work for new wave and pop music, and it'll sell more because it's a little more, less guitars are better and will sell more. And it didn't really work on this. I don't know. It's just there to me. I think these songs deserved a little bit of heft, and they just don't have them. And so it's like there's a cheese factor here for me that I'm like that I have a hard time getting past. I don't know, good, bad, or ugly. I don't know.
So, and this wasn't planned. This wasn't something that we discussed before we came on. If you could only keep one of these three albums, Simon, which one would you keep? And I've only just sprung that on you there. Sorry.
You have, I know. Clearly, it's not this one.
Yeah, because you don't have it, so that's fine. So that's not Foreigner for anyone that's not paying attention.
Probably this one.
Oh, you're such a cheat.
No, this one.
Right, okay.
Sorry.
Peter, which one?
I'm going to keep 4 and a 4.
Okay. And I'm going to go, I'm with Simon. Saraya. I love this album. It's really good. But it's very, I like all three of these, I have to say. Really do. Yeah.
I like that whole impromptu, which one would you keep out of the three? If you were to go off to a desert island, which one could you take? And now we're going to make that a part of every episode. So there you go. Yeah. So there you go, everybody. Our inaugural attempt at this whole AOR melodic rock thing. I thought this worked out pretty well. And what was interesting, and again, it's proven in the past that sometimes it's good when there are people or folks on this panel who haven't heard some of these albums and we're experiencing for the first time. Because again, we talk a lot about how you have history with albums and that sometimes can skew your opinions of them. So for me, it was kind of cool to go into this never having heard the Saraya album before. And I genuinely, I liked it. I thought it was pretty good.
What I was going to mention is that some of the comments under the Doobie Brothers show where we mentioned this is what we were going to do, and also some of the interactions we've had on Twitter, people have been kind enough to share ideas and put albums up there. Now, I will be honest enough to admit, as Simon knows already, I already have a ginormous list of candidates for this show.
Good.
But it was interesting to see some of the pictures that people shared on Twitter where I thought, there are albums there that I'm aware of that I've not heard. And I think we could end up with some that none of the three of us have heard that may fall into one of the latter two categories here. And I think as we go forward, that could be fun as well. So
I think that would be a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah. So I'm happy to take suggestions, but please be aware, people, that there are hundreds of albums, literally hundreds of albums that fall into these categories. So please be patient.
Your Twitter followers just went up 100-fold after that statement.
Ooh, have I got 12 now?
So everybody watching, let us know what you think of these 3 albums in the comments below. That's what this is all about. We're going to talk about them. You guys are going to get to talk about them too down below. And stay tuned next month where we'll have 3 more. Again, one very well known, one kind of a little on the obscure side, and then one a surprising melodic rock or AOR entry by someone you don't expect that type of thing from. So as Steven and Simon have a big long list of them. I haven't contributed to that list yet because I just haven't contributed to that list yet, but there are others that there's all sorts of stuff here we can kind of dip into. So but next week we're going back to ranking the songs on classic albums. Simon, you want to let everybody know what that album is?
I do indeed, and never let it be said that the UK Connection don't listen. We pay attention. We give the people what they want. Yes, we do. And we're going to give them a ranking of every single song on Playing to an Audience of One by David Soul. Yes.
Did you buy that special?
£1.50 that cost me.
Did you buy that special just for that one moment?
I did. Plus, I really like Silver Lady. It's fucking.
I would just like to proclaim live on YouTube, I love you. Okay.
Now all of a sudden, Jamie Laszlo is not the only one on Sea of Tranquility going out and buying shit just for a bit on a show. There you have it.
I genuinely do love Silver Lady. Actually, what we're really going for, and we can't kill any of them off anymore, seeing as Stephen did that previously, is we are going to rank actually all 7 songs on Bat Out of Hell. And we're going to do that in 7 days.
There you go. Exactly. So stay tuned next week. And don't forget, because we haven't mentioned him, but over Simon's left shoulder.
He's going to stay there. He's going to stay there.
He's going to stay there. That's all we're going to say about that. So for all you people who have no idea what we're talking about, you need to go back into the playlist and rewatch some earlier episodes, because I'm done giving an education lesson every single video. So you're going to have to go do some homework, everybody. So yes. So thanks for watching, everybody. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube, all together, all the damn time. For Simon, Bray, and Steven Reid, I am Pete Pardo. See you next week for Bat Out of Hell Day. Till then, have a good one, everybody. Bye-bye.